Okay, so let's start. Hopefully, you're all in now and you can hear me. If someone cannot hear me or have some other problems, just write it into the chat. Welcome to our talk series again today for talk number 3, together with Dave from Atlassian. And today we will talk again about the Atlassian Cloud and have some deep dive and some demonstration about project management and process digitalization. Let's have a short view into the agenda. First, we start with an introduction about Dave and me and the companies we are working at. Again, the persons which were in the last 2 talks, they already know venITure and Atlassian very good, I think. Then Dave will go into the details how Jira works, because all the demonstrations we have today are about Jira. And then we will go into 3 demonstrations about possible use cases. The first is project management, then the HR process, which we can implement, and the patient data we can build into Jira. And as the last step, we have the preview for the next talk. So Dave, would you like to start to introduce you?
Sure, it's good to be with everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to join venITure. Just to introduce myself, I'm a group product manager at Atlassian. I've worked at Atlassian since 2011, so I'll come close to 10 years now. I currently run our enterprise cloud group, so I look across all of our dedicated cloud offerings for larger customers. Prior to that, I spent about 4 years on the Jira team working on our administration capabilities and integrations, APIs, and third-party apps. And then prior to that, I started on the Atlassian Marketplace team, so helping build our enterprise app store for all of Atlassian's products.
Thank you. So, yeah, my name is Till. I'm working at venITure for 2 years now. And as an IT consultant here at venITure, I build the business processes from you as a customer into the Atlassian instances, especially in my case into Jira. And last year, I had a very big key project I was working on. We built full event management into Jira together with our customer ESL. This was a very big solution and a very good thing to see what Jira can do when you really want a full automated event management process. And if you like to see some more information about that project, we had a talk on the summit this year, on the remote summit, and you find this in our YouTube channel. If you want, you can have a look into that after this talk. We'll share some information there about that. Yeah, Atlassian. What is Atlassian, Dave?
So if you're not familiar with Atlassian, it's the company that makes Jira as well as Confluence, Trello, and a number of other projects. Our mission as a company is to unleash the potential in every team. So the common theme throughout all of Atlassian's products is that they are designed to help solve the problems of teams working together. The company was founded in Australia in 2002 by Mike Cannon-Brooks and Scott Farquhar. And today, you know, we've grown pretty tremendously over the last 18 years. And today we have over 150,000 customers, 4,000 employees. I'm currently based in our office in Silicon Valley, but we have our Australian headquarters in Sydney, our US headquarters in San Francisco, and our European headquarters in Amsterdam. And, you know, as of March 2020, just like so many other folks, the entire company of almost 4,000 plus is all working from home right now. So it's been quite an adventure. It's a new time for everybody, but super excited that the company has taken it in stride.
Yeah, thank you for that quick overview, Dave. We as venITure, we work remotely too, and with the Atlassian tools we use in-house as well. This was very easy to get things running because we use this for core processes as well. We are a very young company. We are founded in 2016, 4 years ago, and right now, after 4 years, we have locations in Germany with our headquarter in Cologne, and 3 locations in Croatia and 1 in Turkey. And in the whole company group, we have now more than 100 employees, and as you can imagine, that much locations in 4 years. We are growing very, very fast at the moment. We are one of the fastest growing partners in the world, Atlassian partners. And last year was a really successful year for us. Together with our key project from ESL with the full event management, we were awarded this year as a Rising Star EMEA 2019 with the Atlassian Partner Award. But if you want to know more about venITure and Atlassian and the products Atlassian provides you and how you can implement it, just watch the talk 1 and 2, which are now on YouTube, and you can find the link in the chat. Any questions so far on these very generic topics? Feel free to write questions anytime into the Q&A section or into the chat. We will always come back to them and try to answer them, or we will answer them. So I think no questions right now. So let's go to the next topic. How does Jira work? What are the functions? What is the thinking behind Jira, Dave? Maybe you can give us some insights.
Yeah, thank you, Till. So I couldn't be more excited to give a brief overview of Jira. I spent 4 years working on Jira and have spent my entire career seeing how Jira has the potential to really help companies work and track their work more successfully. Jira is an extremely flexible tool, and because of that, it can be used in many, many different ways. So, which makes explaining exactly what Jira is and how it works potentially challenging. The way I like to describe Jira is when you're in the workplace, work can be very hard to capture. It is there's people, there's processes, there's things to be done, and what Jira does, what Jira fundamentally solves for a company, is it takes this conceptual idea of a thing that needs to be done by somebody somehow, and it makes it into something concrete, something that is represented with data and is trackable and can be viewed and understood by everybody, whether that's a business project, a marketing campaign, somebody onboarding, or a software development task, or a request for service of some kind. But it allows you to concretely represent all these different items of work, and then track them through their process, search for them, provide reporting on them, document how quickly you're executing these tasks, and everything else in Jira builds off of that powerful concept of digitally representing the work that a company is doing. Do you want to go to the next slide, Phil? So there are 2 primary Jira products that Atlassian offers. The first is called Jira Software. Jira Software is our most popular and most widely adopted product, and it's the core of Atlassian's business. And Jira Software takes the Jira platform and applies it to software development. So it has the basics of Jira applied to the process of software development tasks. So planning a backlog of software development work, tracking that software development work through typical software development workflows, and as part of that work, there are a set of integrations with all of the other tooling that a software development team needs in order to track their work. There's advanced software development capabilities like agile estimations, agile tracking, the ability to set up your work in sprints and represent it on board, and a set of extended detailed reporting on agile processes like your sprint velocity, your burn down rate, that sort of thing. So it's set up in a way that it can scale from a very small software development team working on a very simple project that doesn't have a lot of complexity to extremely large software development organizations where you need to track software workflows over multiple years with tens of thousands of developers, and you're tracking things at a program level all the way up to the scaled agile framework type of reporting that you would need. Maybe we should go to the next slide, Till. And that the other Jira product that Atlassian offers that's widely adopted is Jira Service Desk. And so Jira Service Desk takes that same concept of a ticket that you can track through a process, and instead of applying it to a software development process of understand the software development task, implement the software development task, and ship that code, it applies that same concept to service requests. So it allows an IT team to expose a portal to customers, or where their customers can make requests like, I have a problem with my laptop computer, and that request becomes a ticket, and then the IT team can run through a similar process where they review the ticket, they work with the customer, they interact with the customer to solve the problem, and then the ticket's resolved. Jira Service Desk comes with a similar set of advanced functionality that a service team, an agent would need. So there's an automatic queue that prioritizes tickets based on customizable criteria. There's integrations with a knowledge management tool so that you can solve some of these tickets by having customers read the information in a product like Confluence without having to even create a ticket in the first place. And then there's another set of reporting and tracking that's more designed for the service management use cases around SLA, keeping to SLAs, resolving ticket velocity, that sort of thing. So that's a high-level overview of the Jira platform and Jira software and Jira Service Desk. And now I'm going to jump into a little bit more detail of how Jira as an application actually works. So I'm actually going to start on the right side of this slide. So the fundamental unit of Jira, the core of Jira, is what's called an issue. And an issue is a very generic term, and you actually rarely talk about Jira issues in terms of issues, because an issue can be represented and represent so many different types of work. What an issue basically is, it's a unit of work, and that unit of work can map to any kind of work that's being done within your organization. When we show you the applications later in the presentation, it'll make a little bit more sense what different types of units of work look like. Obviously, most work in that a company would do can be organized logically. And so that's where projects step in. And so a project is a collection of related issues. So each issue, it belongs to a project. And so issues and projects are extremely flexible objects. that can be mapped in many different ways to different types of projects. Sometimes a project really is a project. It's a set of work that you're doing that has a start date and an end date, and it's all related to completing a larger task, and each issue is a smaller task. Sometimes a project is a team, and all of the issues in that project are the work the team is doing, which might encompass many different types of many different projects as they see fit. And that's what I mean by you can map these projects and issues to the work that your company is doing. And then finally, boards. Boards are fundamental to every part of Jira, and they're the visual representation of your work. As much as it's helpful to look at one issue at a time, it's also very helpful to see your work as see a broader view of all of the work that's happening within a team. That's why Jira is much more than just a to-do list. It's the work of a lot of people who are all collaborating together, and a board helps you see that work visually and see the different data that's attached to that work in a visual way. So if you take a single project in Jira, so a project is essentially just a container for those issues. We use issues in a lot of different ways in Jira, but this is the default, especially if you're using Jira for software development, and it's an easy way to understand it. So you have a project, which is a container for issues, and then within a project, you can have issues represent a lot of different types of work. And so one of the core constructs alongside an issue is what's called an issue type. So every issue is of a given type, and these types are customizable. But the defaults in a software development project are epic, story, task, bug, and subtask. And you can set up a hierarchy. There's a default hierarchy within these as well. So stories can be linked to an epic, subtasks can be linked to a story. As a software development team, you're likely to have different types of software development work. The work that you do for a task or a story is different than the work that you would necessarily do for a bug, and you might have different expectations accordingly. The work that you do, you might have several different tasks that are required to solve a service request, or you might say, I have a service request, and actually that request is caused by a bug in the software, so I'm also going to create an issue to fix the bug in the software. So you can have lots of different types of issues. They can be linked together in certain ways, but the real value comes by the fact that they're all collected inside of a single project, and then you can and then you can start to attach metadata, customizable metadata, and customizable issue types to each project. So while this is the default, I would encourage you to think about, okay, well, what are the types of work that my organization does, and what do we call them? We'll show you some examples later in the presentation so that you can see how this gets applied. Do you want to go to the next one? Yeah. So here's a simple, more straightforward example of how it starts to look. So in this case, we have 3 projects. There's an HR project, a finance project, and a CAR project for the new car that the company is developing. And so you can start to see some of the concepts come together. So every issue in Jira, we frequently call issues tickets. So each issue or ticket has what's called a key. So that key, and this is a combination of, is a combination of the project key. So the project keys are HR, FI, CR. So it's just a shorthand abbreviation for the project, and then a number. So the first issue that's created in the HR project gets the key HR1. The first issue in the finance project gets the key FI1. And the third issue created in the car project gets the key CR3. Pretty straightforward. And then this next column in the middle is these different icons, the bell and the plus, and those represent the different issue types. So you might have one, you might have an issue that's an alert, and another issue that's a task, and another issue is a story. And so we use these common concepts of the key and the issue type that's represented by an avatar, and these avatars are customizable to represent the basic data. And the third, besides the key, the key and the issue type, the third most important type of data that's associated to each ticket is the status, and the status comes from the workflow. So that's what those are the kind of fundamental non-optional things that all work has. All work has a number that makes it discrete from another item of work. It has a type of work, and that tells you, what is the process for doing that work, what kind of information needs to be collected to do that work. And then there's the process itself, and that process is represented in a series of statuses. So this work is not started, it's in the status to do. This work has been started, but it's not complete. It's in the status of in progress, or this piece of work, this unit of work has been completed. It has a status of done. We'll go into more detail on workflows in a second. There we go. So but project keys and workflow statuses and issue types are just the start. In addition to those kind of core fields, every issue has a set of customizable fields, and that's where Jira really starts to show its power, where you can have a lot more data that's associated with each item of work than just the title of the work. It's the title of the work, the type of work, and the status. So in this, there's a set of both built-in fields, things like a summary field, and then more customizable fields. So in this case, in this HR project, the type of work is it's an opportunity. So it means like we have a new, each opportunity is a person. So this ticket tracks a person who is a new potential candidate to be hired. And so with a use case like that, it means in order for this ticket to represent a person that we need to consider as a job candidate, we need to collect some information about that person. So you can have fields for name and experience, and this person seems qualified, but what Jira allows you to do is, we know that every company's HR process is going to be different, and both in terms of the way that they track their candidates through the process, and then also the information that needs to be collected about each candidate. And so that's where a tool like Jira can be very helpful, because you can customize this ticket to collect the data that is critical for your company, for your use case. Here's a different example. So in the same project, the project is still HR. So it's still collecting the work that the HR team is doing, but you have a different type of task, or a different type of issue. So in this case, the issue type is onboarding. So that means that instead of the process you would be going through, and the data that you would be going through for a candidate joining the company, or sorry, a candidate that you're considering for the company. In this case, you have somebody who's joining the company, and you need to go through the process of they've signed their paperwork to, they're showing up on their first day. And that means you need a different set of data. So you need a start date. You need to know who their supervisor is. You need to know whether they're going to need a laptop. And so the key thing to understand here is that for different types of issues within a given project, the project can contain different concepts, and within each issue, you can have different sets of data that are collected for that type of work. That's the power of issue types. And here's one more example. So with another issue type, in this case, it is a leave request. So another type of work that an HR team or the people working in the HR project would have to take on. But in this case, it's a completely different set of data that you need. So the HR team needs to be able to receive and approve leave requests. And so when they collect that data, they need information like, well, when is the start date and the end date for the leave request? Jira has, with the custom fields that are available in Jira, they can be of many different types. So we support dozens of different types of fields, whether they're text fields or numeric fields or date fields or much more advanced types of custom fields like supervisor, who would be another user in Jira. And then, so a team would need to collect all of this data, and then they can track that leave request through the workflow that all the approval workflow for all types of leave requests. And at a higher level, having all of these types of tickets created in the HR project allows the HR team, or the team that's working on HR, to see all the different types of work. Here's how many leave requests we're doing. Here's how many onboarding candidates we're onboarding. And you can start to see a broader picture of what's the team actually doing. So that's probably a good transition to start talking about workflows. So we talked a lot about issues and the fields that we can associate with an issue. The other critical piece to an issue, besides the fields, kind of capture the what is the work, and then the workflow is the how is that work done. So all work goes through some workflow. The simplest possible workflow is to do and done. But even within a to do and done workflow, there are two states. You've either done the work or you haven't done the work. And in reality, it's very hard to not have another state, which is in progress, where the work is in the process of being done. And that's actually the default workflow that every Jira project starts with. Is a very simple to do, in progress, done. What we're showing here is a slightly more complex workflow that's designed for an extremely basic software development team, where and basically what you're seeing here is a simple workflow diagram. It has a couple different concepts. The first one is a transition. So a transition is the process that an issue goes through when it goes from one status to another. And then you have the statuses themselves. So the statuses here are open, which means, which is the first, what we call the initial state of the workflow. And then in progress, closed, reopened, and resolved. And the way that these tie together is you use transitions to move an issue from one status to another. So when you create an issue for the first time, we call that an initial transition. But when an issue is created, it is by default always going to start in the open status. And then in order to move it into the in progress status, you need to start working on the issue. And sometimes that's as easy as just changing the status from, hey, this issue is not being worked on, to start progress, and now it is being worked on. And if I stop working on it, it would revert back to, no, it's no longer being worked on, it would revert back to open, or I finish the issue and it transitions to close. But these actually become a lot more valuable as you build on top of them. And so you say, okay, in order to move an issue to change the status of an issue from open to in progress, you also need to make sure that it's assigned to yourself, or you need to make sure that this set of data is filled out on the issue. You can't close an issue for leave requests without communicating to the employee that it's approved, or triggering a notification that might be automated that leave request has been approved, that sort of thing. And that's where the combination of both the status and the transitions can start to become extremely powerful. And then the third kind of building block of Jira, once you have your projects filled with issues, is to start using the reports to get to do more powerful things. And so Jira provides a number of built-in reporting tools. Some are kind of generic, like list of issues, basic charting ability to see, how quickly are you creating issues? How quickly are you resolving issues where the issue is in the final status? Or, what is the breakout of how many stories versus bugs versus tasks are my team doing? And then we have more advanced types of reporting for specific agile software development concepts, Kanban development concepts, IT service concepts. And there's a number of additional capabilities like versions and components that can all be tied into issues. You can see you want to make sure that work is evenly distributed among your team. So you have a report that shows, okay, here's how many issues are assigned to each member of my team at any given time. And you can see who's taking on more of the work, that sort of thing. So with that, that's the basic highest level summary of Jira. So we can pause and Till and I can take questions if you have them.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I think good explanation, no questions here. So I think we can move on to the next agenda topic, which is more about the demonstration topics. So let's go to the project management topics. And in the project management topic, we will focus on the challenges you have, on the functions we provide, and which advantages you have. So Dave, you want to start with the challenges?
Yep. So with project management, project management is probably the core and the #1 use case that companies start to use to adopt Jira, whether it's software development projects or business projects of many, many different kinds. And so the kind of fundamentals of Jira that I just went through have a lot of applications to the particular challenges with traditional project management. So it's in a traditional project management system, people tend to work in silos. It's not easy to have teammates collaborate on tasks, and there's no central way to communicate. So I work with a colleague on a task, and in the old world, like we might have just had an email conversation about that task, and we figure it out, and then I do the task and don't tell anybody. And so nobody knows if the task is done. Nobody knows about the conversation that I had with the colleague, and so that information is not shared more broadly within the company. And then I just say, well, I worked 8 hours for the day. And it doesn't really tell you anything about, well, how much time did this task take you? And what that means for a company is that it becomes a lot more difficult to understand, okay, are there certain types of tasks, whether it's tasks for this client or this aspect of the project, that are taking longer than others, or is Dave working much more slowly than Till? It makes it more difficult to analyze risk appropriately, because you don't have a consolidated log of all of the tasks, and it makes it more difficult to assess costs. And then, and then Jira, and then because you don't have a central place that brought together all of the work that was done, it means that compiling a status report or an OPL becomes a lot more complicated and unnecessarily difficult, or requires more labor than it should.
So what are the functions we can provide with the project management tool in Jira? Well, as Dave described in the very good overview about how Jira works, we have several native stuff in Jira which helps providing a good overview of tasks or issues. One of them is assigning tasks. So when you have an issue, you have all the core fields like Dave described, but you always have an assignee. And the assignee is very interesting because this is the person who is responsible to solve the task or solve the issue, and he needs to take care of that. So we are able to assign a ticket or an issue directly to a person, so we have a responsibility here. We have escalation services, like if a thing is not solved in time, we reach a due date and so on, we can create automated alerts because we have all the tasks in one tool. And with the easy reporting, we get the filterings, we get the task overview on the boards, where we see the tasks of the whole team, which are not done, which are waiting in the backlog of our Kanban board, for example, or we can create sprint overviews for our tasks. With the time logging function in Jira, we have the possibility to see how long persons need on several tasks, to track the costs also, because often you need the time to say, well, our project costs 1 million, for example. You need the time to calculate that. And if you have add-ons installed in Jira, we are able to create different Gantt charts per project, different versions, the initial version, a best case, a worst case, and so on. And as mentioned before, we get easy status reports, and we can comment on the tests to have a communication based on tasks and not based on persons. If anyone is in vacation, for example, we still can access all the comments and all the communication. So what are the advantages? We have an easy overview in the boards. We have the automatic alert mail. We have the overview of how many time per project were invested. We can see differences between the different Gantt charts we can provide per project. And as stated before, we have all data in one project management tool, which is Jira, and not some information in Excel like the open point list or the risk assessment in another Excel file. We have the communication in Outlook, we have the Gantt chart in projects, and then we need to sync them manually, and we cannot create the exports and so on. We all have it in one tool, and we can easily get all the data, all the reports out of it we need. We have all the information connected. So then you can have a better overview of how this could look like. We want to provide you a short demonstration of this. So let's have a look into Jira Cloud. So now what we see here is our Jira Cloud. We see our board we have, and we see that we are working now in one specific project, in a long-term project, which is called over here. And we see that we are creating a new car. This is the topic we described earlier when we talked about different projects like HR or car or the new car project. So we have here different issue types as well, like a software task in this project, like a hardware task, and we are able to create several subtasks to solve the whole hardware task. Like if you have the task that your engine needs more horsepower, well, you have to modify the engine design as well. and this is a subtask of it. You see that the Kanban board has several columns. One is the to-do column, one the in-progress column, and one the in-done column. And you are able to customize this as you like. You can, behind this Kanban board, there is a workflow, and you can easily switch or start the progress by moving just the tickets around into in progress. Then you start with this ticket, for example. And you see the assignee we talked earlier about. This is Fatih here, for example. And I can click on this. I can see all the interesting things. Which other topics are blocked by this task. So I first have to modify the engine design because this blocks the next topic, optimize efficiency. I can see who is the reporter, who is the assignee, and I can also move it via this view through the workflow. So if I don't want to work on the engine, I just click cancel. Yeah, and then it's moved to done because done is cancelled. And in this view, we have done task and won't, and task which should not be done in the same column. With the quick filters here above, I can easily have a look which tasks are assigned to me. So which tasks I have to work on. In this case, the whole part that we need more horsepower, and another issue like lower weight, which is not associated to any other topic. Or I can have a look what Dennis' tasks are. He has to have a look at the requirements. So this is the functionality about the board we are in, but we can have a look into this ticket as well. So let's have a deeper look into PM69. You can search for it in the search bar above and just have a look. So we have here the description with all the information and the several subtasks where we can see how much of these are already done. And you can easily create a new subtask if we say new design needed, for example. I can easily, there's a spelling mistake in there, design needed. I can easily create a new subtask, and this is directly added to the board as well. So, when we talked about the Gantt charts earlier, let's have a look into the Gantt chart, because this is a very good tool to get an overview. We use the advanced roadmaps for this. This is included in the premium plan of your Atlassian cloud plan. And we see now that we are working here in the plan for creating a new car. We have here the main topic where several other tasks are linked to, like the software tasks and the hardware tasks we saw before. And now we see when the whole project starts. So it starts at the 14th of April and it ends on the 26th of August 2020. And we have another due date which is later. And now there are some specific topics which are very, very useful, because if the due date is before the end date, for example, we set it now to June, we get an automatic alert that there's a problem somehow. We see the issue start date or end date is set beyond the due date, so there's a mistake. And if we set it back to the thing at the end of September, for example, we see this is not orange anymore, everything is okay. But we see somewhere in the children's of this ticket, in this project, are some other warnings, and we have to take care about it. Yeah. We are able to connect these tickets to each other, because maybe you can just start with getting more horsepower after you get all the requirements. So just enter PM69 in here, and we have the block dependency between those two established in here. then we have the thing is already over, the end date is done, and we see the issue is not done. So we always get the help from the tool to see which topics are overdue and so on. We have a look now at the best scenario, but we can look back to the initial scenario, and we see now, well, we have here the 28th of August, so the other due date. We don't have the link in here, so we always have different scenarios which we can compare. And one big advantage is when we go back to the best scenario case, we are able to review the changes of this tool before we publish them, because sometimes maybe we make any mistake and then we say, oh shit, everything is broken. But here you can say, you can have a look and you can click which one you want to save. Then you can save those changes in Jira, and then everything is done and okay. You can create routines in here and see which people are working in this Kanban team. And you can create the releases as well of the car, for example, or of any software which is in the car. So this is based on Jira software, this solution, because it doesn't matter if you develop any kind of software or any other solution you can have, and this is why this tool works for all of those solutions. So back to the presentation, and maybe any questions to the project management in Jira. So let's move on to the HR process, which we can implement into Jira. Dave, the brief overview about the challenges. I think we have to hurry up a bit because we just have 9 minutes left.
No worries, I'll go quickly. So the key thing, the most important thing to understand is that because of Jira's flexibility and the way that the product is set up, it's any process that basically has a set of tasks of different types that are repeatable and go through similar workflows can be modeled fairly effectively in Jira. And a lot of HR processes are no different. So the process for bringing in a candidate, interviewing that candidate, making a decision on whether that candidate should be hired, and then hiring that candidate, it's a straightforward HR workflow. A process for requesting leave, documenting that leave, and approving that leave is similar. It's a standard workflow. Making sure that you're collecting the set of data that you need for the candidates you're recruiting, for the job openings you have available, for the leave requests that you receive, are things that can be represented with the fields that are in each Jira ticket. So, these kind of core challenges of an HR team of, different types of tasks, collecting different data about those tasks, and then putting them through the workflow are very repeatable in HR as well.
Okay, so let's have a look at the functions. So with Jira Service Desk and the customer portal it has, we have the possibility to that the recruitment candidate access their own data if they want. So they upload the data into this portal and they can change the data whenever they want, or add some additional data, upload a new CV if they like. And with you as a company, you can say, well, these data are mandatory for us if we get a new recruitment candidate. So you can pull all the relevant data you need. And based on this recruitment ticket, you can create your task which you need to have a good process and a good onboarding process later on, created automatically with a good schedule by, for example, automation for Jira, which helps you to have all the automation running. And you can start the onboarding process automatically if you decide this is a candidate I want to go forward with. So which advantages do we have? We have, with a good started or in time started onboarding process, we have all the equipment in place. When the person is starting in your company. So the person is not in the company while you don't have any laptop there, for example, and don't have any license or account, because Jira reminds you to create this in time. You can create a good overview of the recruitment candidates which are good for you, because you can set status for each candidate, like this is a good candidate, this is something I don't want to go with in the future. And you have all the CVs in one tool. Maybe before that you get some CVs via letter, or you get some via email and so on. Now you have them all in your service queues, and you can have a good look through that and decide which employee would be the best for you. And yeah, at the end, when the employee is contracted to your company, you have the overview, which is an active and which is an inactive employee, because you have the offboarding process as well. So let's have a look to the demonstration of this. Okay, so let's apply for a job here at this customer portal. What we see here is a customer portal. The customer or the recruitment candidate can create easy his own account, and now we have different services for the recruitment candidate and for the employees, like applying for vacation, advise a candidate, employee onboarding, questions, or applying for a job. We will now have a look how to apply for a job with Jira Service Desk. So first we get all the fields they want to know. So I will enter my name here, not my real email address, just for GDPR reason. The phone number, the address, it's company address, social media account, and for which job you want to apply. I want to get a Scrum Master now, and I have more than 3 years of experience. I'm allowed to work in this area where I apply for a job, for example in Germany, and I want to get 100 euro per month. I have to upload an attachment as well. So I use the HR document or the CV. This is just an example. I can upload this, I can select skills if I want, or the languages I speak. And then I can say, well, my application is finished and I want to send it to the company. This is how it looks like. I see that the recruitment process is started. I can have a look. Wait, sorry. This was the phone, sorry for that. So I see the status of the thing. I can add some additional information if I like. For example, here as a comment, additional information, and I can save it. And now let's see how you as a HR agent, for example, see the ticket in our normal Jira Service Desk view. So we have all the same information here as well. We see that it's apply for a job as a request type with all the information we entered, and we see as well the additional information which were added afterwards. We see here as well that we have, where is it here? The linked issue, which is the new candidate, Till Bernitt. So it's me. And now we are able to move here, the status from open to another one, but let's have a look into the application, because now it's getting interested. Automation for Jira creates automatically, in this case, a new ticket, which I can work through another workflow. This is a very easy workflow. Just have a look on this one. It has several statuses, starting with the application, through the screening, interviewing, interview debriefing, offer discussions about all the interesting information we need, and then we can accept or reject the candidate. And as I said, we can schedule and create automatically some tasks like the HR interview, the technical interview, and, for example, checking up appropriate rate for the job. So I can move through this, like going to the screening, having the interview, while at the same time I can close the HR interview because I've done it. Select a resolution, it's done. Here, close this issue, go back to my overview, and so on. I can work through this one. I can reject it, or giving the offering that we have discussions. And then we have the technical interview. We can close this one because I have done it. Set the resolution and close this issue. We are able to go back to the parent issue. And in this discussion, we checked out for this one as well, for the rate they want to have. And close this one, say 100 euro were enough as a comment on this topic. And we see now, here we have this comment added. And we always, anyone who is allowed to see this candidate ticket can have a look about all the information which were stored about the rate in the rate ticket. So now at the end, the offer was accepted and the person is now created as an employee. This is the case when we reload it. Then we see the employee ticket Till Bernitt. And this is very interesting because now we can solve additional information in this, like remaining paid of vacation days, some internal numbering and so on. And when we have a look at the Kanban board, we see also what I mentioned before. We can see which persons are working at the moment, which are temporarily leave or exited the company. For example, when I say I will be in vacations, I can set it into the status at holiday. And then I see, well, in this time, today Till Bernitt is not in the company. And when he is finished with his, he reached the end, the ticket reached the end date of the leave request time, well, then it moves automatically back to working. So I always have the overview which people are currently available in the company. I can do this as well for the on sick leave. This is another use case of how a board, how a project, and how a workflow can provide you a good overview of information which are stored in tickets. So, any questions? And I think we have one from Paulo. Is recruitment management also possible? Hopefully we answered that with showing you how to apply for a job in our service desk. So we can have a quick look back to this. The recruitment management is we apply for a job and then the person can have a look through that. We see here, when we go back, wait, I need to go to the specific ticket, but I forgot the ticket key. Let's go to this ticket again. And what we can see here again, we have here the recruitment ticket. And what I didn't mention, we have several queues where we can have a look at. So we see all the open requests for the HR help desk. I see all the onboarding requests, I see all the offboarding requests, and all holiday applications. And as well, I can set a queue for all new candidates, for example. So the recruitment manager can have a look through all the candidates to manage the recruitment. Hopefully that solves the question, Paulo. If not, feel free to write it and we can have a deeper discussion after the talk, if you like, or send directly. Any other questions at the moment? No? So let's move on to the next topic, the patient data. The challenges from Dave.
Yeah, so very similar to the two topics that we had already discussed, you know, where you need to collect information from patients and represent that information, whether that's appointments that are to be scheduled, or the data about the patient that is going to, you know, have the appointment. You need to collect that in a centralized place that's accessible to both the doctor and to the patients, and you need to do that securely. And that's where it's not just a matter of the management functions of tracking the process and collecting the data become important, but all the additional capabilities of an enterprise software product like Jira to make sure that you do that in a way that's both user-friendly and also secure for the company, which is particularly important in a situation like healthcare, and particularly important in a time like this.
Okay, let's have a look at the functions. So we also work again with the Jira Service Desk. So we have appointment requests in the customer portal, which we see before. We can submit forms via the customer portal as well. For example, if you need a new medicine or you need to get a sign again from the doctor, you can ask him via a form for that, and you can share your patient data as well with several doctors over this. I can show you later if you like. And we see all the requests in one tool, because when you have more than one request at one doctor, you have several tickets on this doctor, and then you can always look up what was happened in the past about your health. So we have a good overview of own health-related problems. We have a safe storage of the data, and we see all details of the health problems of our past. So this is a short example which we demonstrate you as well. Let's have a look in here. We start in this case with the queue, which I showed you in the last example as well. Here we have 4 issues. 2 are solved, and we have 2 open issues. For example, we can have a look into this one. I'm having a headache. It's related to I cracked my leg because it's the same reporter. So we see he cracked his leg and he has a headache, and the doctor can see. So this is a view from the doctor. You can see, well, these are the patients which have all these problems. We see all the stuff which the doctor wrote into the ticket, that the person is working 70 hours per day, and that's maybe the reason for that. And as we see, we have one internal note and we have an external note. So this is just for the doctor and all the employees from the doctors to see. And this is the official statement to the patient. When we look into the customer portal again, into the help center, we see now, for example, in this example, 2 possible forms. One is the health-related request, and the other one, the scheduled appointment. We start with the health-related request. We have a reason why we want to have the request. For example, my hand, I cut my finger off because I did it I put something, for example, this is a description, cut my finger off, and this was happened in Hamburg, because I live here with the address. It's just some example data again, and I can send this request. Then I can add some additional information as well. Additional information, save this one, and we can go back to the queues, because now we see we have one more in here. In the all open, for example. I cut my finger off. We can go into this and say, now, Dennis, he's the doctor, he will work on this, I assign it to him, it's his responsibility. And he said, well, you can come asset to us. So we start the communication in here. And we see this now in our customer portal. So we have here it's now the same person because I'm demonstrating this, but we have the communication through these. And I can add an internal note. We need help in this case. And I can add the internal note as well. And when we now refresh this one, the patient is not able to see it. As well, I can add some other things like templates. If I have a discharge and someone was in the hospital, for example, we can have a canned response that he was released from the customer and he has several sicknesses, and another one, for example, with a visit from the doctor with several topics and so on. And we can save it so the customer is always informed, or the patient is always informed what was happened, and he can have a look through it. And then when he was released from the hospital, and he goes to his normal doctor, and the doctor said, well, yeah, I want to see those data because I know I have to know what I have to do together with you to help you to get healthy again. I have to request all the data, they have to send it to me with a letter and so on. I have to bring it to the doctor, or I get it on paper. And now I can just say, well, my doctor is Ahmed. I can add him here in this case, add him, and now he's able to see this as well. But I can just, I can say this person is able to view my health case and no one else. And because Ahmed is another doctor, well, is my doctor, he's allowed to see it. And we can have a look at the permissions in this way. We are now a few minutes over. That's why I just had a short demonstration of patient data. There are other functionalities as well. Any questions on that topic? No? So the next talk is in 2 days, and it's the last day, the last talk of our talk series in June. It's on the 25th of June at 11 a.m. Central Europe time, and it's together with Adil, partner manager from another Atlassian solution partner here in Germany from Cyber Media, and he's an expert again on linchpin. And we will talk about knowledge management and service management, the combination of Service Desk and Confluence. And we want to talk about some e-schooling possibilities with Confluence, how you can have your classes more digitized with Confluence. So thank you, Dave, for being part of this. Thank you for participating to the talk, to everyone. If there are any other questions, I will stay another couple of minutes here in this session, and yeah, feel free to ask.
Thank you, everyone.